Hi, welcome to our next General Dame scenario. We're going to have a go at the hill of Arinez out of the Vitoria scenario book, where the British and Portuguese are assaulting a French defensive position. Let's have a look at the initial layout before we get started. On the hill itself, we have a French light brigade. Deployed on the hill with its skirmish screen thrown out in front of it. And then the village of Arinez, we have a French foot artillery battery and two line battalions and two Nassau battalions. Should be a configuration of the Rhine brigade with Baden troops, so I only have two Nassau battalions. So the other two battalions are being taken by French line infantry regiments. And then over on this hill we have thrown forward a third French brigade with a foot artillery battery. So three brigades on the table for the French, and their objectives are to deny the British victory, and they do that by making sure no more than one brigade breaks. So if two brigade breaks, that's one of the British victory conditions. And they need to hold on to the hill. Alternatively, the British can win by holding the hill and the village, irrespective of breaking the French brigades. So that's the defensive French position. Three brigades on the table. They've got a fourth brigade and some cavalry in reserve. If we swing around the table, we can have a look at the British position. So Charlie's going to be playing the British today. He'll be trying for another victory. On the left-hand flank, the right-hand side as the French see it, we have a French foot artillery battery, a British foot artillery battery deployed. We have two attacking brigades. First one's allowed to deploy 18 inches onto the table. That's a British regular line battalion supported by a Portuguese brigade. On their flank, we have a third British brigade. And then as we come round close to the hill where the French are deployed forward, we have elements of the light division. So we have three regiments depicting the 95th Rifles. So it's a bit dark in here, and they're also quite dark figures. They're my KGL/Hanoverian Lights, who are playing all 95th Rifles with a supporting British infantry regiment. And here another battalion of the 95th Rifles and a battalion playing as the 52nd Light, so they're elite. So we have veterans and elites on this flank, so they're going to be looking to make quick progress against the French left flank. The French are hoping this is just a diversion that will slow down the British assault, because they're basically looking to hold the village on the hill. Alright, we'll see how this game goes. Looks like an interesting scenario. We'll be back with turn one shortly. And the British have stepped off and started the attack. We'll just walk around. The big assault is going in, or the main assault is going in on the French defensive positions on the hill of Arinez, with its supporting foot artillery battery. British and French skirmishers are starting to exchange fire in the plain, and the British infantry battalions look like they're lining themselves up for some exchange of musketry, because they've deployed their front two battalions out of support distance, but to avoid bounce through from the French artillery fire. And as we look down the British line, they've done the same thing pretty much all across the line, with the British light battalions, the two battalions of the 95th and the 52nd, heading up towards the French artillery battery. French fire was pretty minimal this turn. Indeed, all the artillery was pretty ineffective. So we'll see how things pan out in turn two. Here's just a view of the back of the Portuguese infantry, the British, and indeed the 2nd Brigade of the British here. Getting ready to commence the attack in turn two. Right, we're at the start of turn 3, taking a view from the French side. The French on the hill continue to take long-range artillery fire from the British here. We might step back with our second rank. We put them up to make sure they were in support range, and now we realise we're just going to take several turns of artillery fire, so we may move the second rank back this turn. In the centre, the French artillery again has proved completely ineffective, causing no casualties on the British. The two smallish skirmish screens continue to exchange pot shots at one another, not having much impact. And then we move over to the far left French flank. We can see the three battalions of light infantry, the 2 of rifles and the 52nd approaching, and their skirmish screen is absolutely gunning the French down, causing yet more casualties this turn. Soon the French skirmish screen will be gone, and I'm sure those skirmishers will be up, trying to take the guns out that are holding this hill. This battery has also fired twice at the 52nd light and done no casualties. So still long range firepower mainly at the moment, and we'll get on with turn 3. So we're in turn 4 now. The French have received their first reinforcing brigade at turn 3, and they've not been able to release that from on-table reserves. Otherwise the fire exchange continues and the British line continues to advance. For the first time the French artillery has started to have some impact and caused 3 casualties on the 52nd light. Otherwise the British are continuing to win the war of the skirmishers. Things are getting close now. We'll be seeing some infantry battalions start to exchange volleys very shortly. Right, on we go with turn 4. Right, we're at the beginning of turn 5. The French reserves have been activated, but are staying in place till they see how the British attack develops. On the hill, French lines are continuing to face off against the British, who are advancing, and again on advance orders this turn. In the centre, the Nassau and French Infantry Brigade remains in the village in defensive position. The action looks like it's hopping up on the hill. So we have the French cavalry, so this is a French chasseur à cheval regiment, one you've seen many times before, and the 2nd regiment is actually meant to be Nassau chasseurs à cheval. We're just using the 2nd squadron for that French regiment as the 2nd. Over here, it's getting to the pointy end, as they say. We've got the British pretty much ready to start the assault against the French position on this hill. They've cleared away most of the French skirmishers. French rifles are now starting to fire away against this foot battery crew on the hill, with all of the French line in support. Here are the riflemen now moving up, and you've got the British infantry battalions close to being in charge range. They may indeed be in charge range this turn, but are going to move forward one more time, I think, before they commit. Otherwise the British steamroller moves forward, and the British indeed have brought their cavalry on. Interestingly, they decided not to go for a cavalry on cavalry face-off, but are looking to exploit that gap down their left-hand flank and potentially go for the hill as their primary objective. So got French in the British cavalry in the opposite corners, and we'll see how turn 5 turns out. Right, beginning of turn 7. The British are now approaching the French lines on the hill. Continued exchange of skirmisher fire, getting ready to start exchanging volleys, and expect that to happen next turn. In the centre, the French artillery continues to take a few casualties off the advancing British lines. And as we look over onto the left-hand flank, again the British are just content with using their skirmishers to take out and damage the artillery before they choose to charge home, and the French artillery is not really causing huge casualties. We're getting towards action time as the British infantry is getting towards musket range of the French units on both flanks. So we'll see how turn 7 plays out. Right, we're at the beginning of turn 8. The French Reserve Brigade has started moving forward so it can clear the field, so it's ready to act in support or counter-attack on the hill. As we look at the hill of Arinez, the British battalions are now up to the bottom of the hill and deployed to start exchanging volleys with the French, and the British skirmishers have cleared out the way so the volleying can start. The Portuguese continue to move up in support of the British attack, and the British light dragoons and hussars are now coming round the flank, so possible flank attack there. So we move across to the left hand side. Charlie's still playing a waiting game. We'll see whether this is good tactics or unnecessary caution. But over here, the French still pretty much unmolested on the hill, but the British skirmishers, the 95th Rifles, have caused a lot of casualties on that French artillery battery. And we're going, yeah, 6 casualties so far, so they do take 4 shots a turn, so it won't be too long till that battery is pretty much rendered ineffective. And over here, the 1st Battalion of the 95th Rifles is now going to be volleying against the French. And the French cavalry has started moving forward quite aggressively now, threatening the flank of the British attack on the hill. In response, one of the British battalions has moved into square. And it's just a view of the centre from the British side. So that French cavalry is a bit menacing, might even be in charge range of that 2nd British Battalion there. It's got time to do a form square test. We'll see how it goes and pans out. Things are getting pretty interesting as we start turn 8. Right, we're in the middle of an eventful turn. Quite a lot's gone on in the movement phase. The French chasseurs indeed have charged out from behind their own lines and caught the end of that British line in the flank. They tried to form square, but unfortunately have just gone unformed. The French cavalry were really close just to running them down, but Charlie threw his general in, which just got the test to be into combat with a Lann and defender unformed, and given that he was already unformed, that's not a bad result for the British. Still quite a difficult hand-to-hand combat test. In response to that, Charlie's moved his Portuguese up to surround the chasseurs with fire, seeing where they end up after these combats. He's also swung his flanking units of cavalry around and formed square with his other battalion in the 2nd line to head off any charge through by the British if they manage to succeed in the hand-to-hand combat. So all quite messy there. Charlie, you've got initiative, haven't you? Mm-hmm. So he's now got some pretty fearsome volleys to do, as both of his British battalions are now in line there, and they'll be obviously volleying as veterans. So expect them to start whittling down the French defence on that hill. And as we move across the line, the elite British infantry brigade, it's also moving forward, has now got a big gap. Now the cavalry have moved out the way to move up into, might give them a forwards order or something next turn to get them up against the farm and start taking the village. And in the centre, the next British veteran brigade is now starting to volley with the French brigade on this hill, and the artillery battery is down to, I think, 9 casualties, isn't it, Charlie? So 1 more casualty from all those skirmishers, which will pretty much guarantee it being knocked out, and then the other British units can move forward too. So Stowe definitely going for the sort of meat grinder approach to the attack and relying on British firepower. The French have hung on well till turn 9 now, but the British volleys are now starting to rip into them. So we'll come back and see how the combat and the various firing have gone next turn. So just had a really good turn for the British. Charlie was feeling very depressed. He thought his dad might beat him for once, but we've had some typical Charlie lucky dice rolls, and as you can see, the French chasseurs have been thrown back. The infantry square, which has involuntarily retired actually after the combat, was charged in the flank and actually managed to cause 3 casualties, whereas the chasseurs only caused 1 casualty with some enormously appalling dice roll by Dad. So they were thrown back, they've retired, they have just reformed, but are out of the action. The British cavalry in the turn 10 has moved forward to plug the gap. The British attack has reformed its lines and resuming its volley of the French units on the hill. And as I say, just to clear the space and allow the British cavalry to plug the gap, the battalion that had been charged, that was in line and had failed to form square, has retired behind the Portuguese brigade. That went hesitant, stayed where it was. The other British brigade remains hesitant and stayed where it was, and otherwise the British battalions continue to volley. The rifles here check the range, and they are in range of the chasseurs, so they'll be following them this turn. and the 52nd and their supporting 95th Rifle Unit has now occupied the hill on the right flank. The French brigade that was thrown off the hill and lost its artillery battery is faltering, unfortunately. It got a retire result, so all the units took a casualty. It's now lost its skirmish screen, and overall this flank's in a bit of a mess. I think fortunately for the French, this flank doesn't really matter, not holding any objectives. So still quite a way for the British to go to capture the village. They're looking slightly better in their assault on the hill. Still reasonable prospects of potentially breaking 2 British brigades. We're on the movement phase in turn 10, so over halfway through, we'll see. Right, we're in turn 11 now. The British light cavalry has swung round. It was going to have a go at charging the unformed chasseurs while British had the initiative. Couldn't quite reach them, so instead has charged the French guns. That will either be a glorious victory or a very messy result. Over here, the French battalions are really in a terrible shape now, and I think a couple more volleys from the British and they'll be off the hill. But we are on turn 11, so time for Charlie is rapidly running out, and there's an awful lot of French behind them, able to recapture that hill. Over in the centre, the British battalions are moving resolutely forward. A couple more volleys and I think the chasseurs will be driven away. And unfortunately, the other French brigade has carried on retiring. And the British are now firmly in command of the hill on the right flank. We'll see how turn 11 plays out. Back for turn 12. Right, we're at the end of turn 12. The British have caused the French brigade that was holding this hill to falter, and it's retired right back to the table edge, and the British brigade has advanced onto the hill. It's taken quite a lot of casualties, might well get pushed off by that second French reserve brigade. So this is a bit of a tenuous hold, but it is Charlie's one of his 2 objectives in the game. We've still got the Portuguese brigade moving up in support, probably a couple of turns away, and the 4th battalion in the British brigade, which is now moving forward again. In the centre, we've got the elite British brigade now approaching the edge of the town, and British skirmishers exchanging fire with the French infantry and French infantry foot battery on the edge of town. This veteran British brigade also done well, and it volleyed 1 unit of chasseurs cheval to death this turn, so those chasseurs are currently faltering. Over on this flank, again, great fire from the 95th Rifles has taken out one of these French brigades battalions, so this brigade is also faltering. So we've had a faltering brigade pretty much every turn for the French, and we've got 2 faltering brigade tests again this turn. We'll see whether they go and give the British the route to victory. But we're on turn 12, 6 more turns for the French to hang on. I think they're doing pretty well on objectives, but the troops are expiring. Right, we're at the start of turn 13, and this has been my ADC role. And as Charlie was pointing out to me by desperately waving his hands off camera, I actually have 3 faltering brigades. I have the chasseurs, who had a unit destroyed by volley fire. I have this brigade, which had a unit destroyed by the 95th Rifles. And I have the brigade over there, which again lost a unit to volley fire and has fled back to the table edge. So I only have 1 ADC this turn. I have to allocate an ADC to each brigade to stop it taking a savoir-qui-peur result, which means it automatically retires, which is retreating 18 inches off the table. So if I allocate the 1 successful ADC to one of these 2 brigades at the back, I've at least got a chance of saving it. So the cavalry will have to savoir-qui-peur, retreat 21 inches, which may be just enough to keep them on the edge of the table, but I definitely will lose that brigade over there. So that's what I'm going to do, and we are now going to roll the result of the 1 brigade that's got the savoir-qui-peur result, which has got the active ADC, which will be this brigade down here. So we've got a 1. That means it's got a savoir-qui-peur as well, so all 3 brigades are retreating, and for me that means 2 brigades definitely go off the table edge. So I have lost. Charlie, you've won again.
I actually thought we might hang on here, especially when the cavalry attack went in and caught him in the flank. But that British battalion's ability to throw off a cavalry attack, despite a -6 charge result, and when Charlie threw in his general, which I was worried, or brigadier, I was worried he might lose him, was just enough to allow it to get into the melee phase, which they then remarkably won. That swung the whole battle, and Charlie's steady but sure tactic, not charging with a single British unit in the game, just moving forward and volleying with those superior volleys, have in the end caused the French brigades to crack. And although a counterattack could have been successful against this hill, probably would have been, and I think the French may well have been able to hang on to their 2 objectives if I hadn't had that appalling ADC roll. I can't deny that's what has happened, and we've got another great victory to the British. See you again soon. Cheers.